Hey, Brother Fisher.
Hi. Morning, sir. How are you doing?
Great.
Oh, lovely.
Doing great. I just got my just got my first sermon over to you.
Okay, great. You sent it via, did you email it to me?
No, I did didn't you ask us to put it on the LM?
LMS? Okay, yeah, I'll go and check after the class. I'll go and check it.
Okay.
Okay, all right.
Yeah, yeah, it was a good study. I think it will be a
Okay,
good lesson.
yeah, I will, as soon as the class is finished, I'll look at it. Yeah, thank you for that. Um,
Yeah. No, I appreciate the so I've never really had a class on, constructing a sermon.
okay,
So it was it was helpful.
okay, great. Do you know that there is a course though? I think it's sermon delivery and preparation.
I
Um,
want to take it. It hasn't been back up to take. I think that's like a year-long class or something, isn't it?
yeah, or maybe it might, yeah, at the next rotation. I know that the last time, I think it was taught, I think, by two persons, I think by Alan Webster and David Decker, I think, if my memory serves me right. And
Pretty
it
good class.
is, yeah, it is, it's a good, it's a requirement. You can't preach without a sermon. So it is a good course. So and those are two good teachers. Um,
Of course.
so if whenever it comes around, I'm sure you're going to do it. But it's a great class.
Yeah, I think Neil Pollard's doing it right now.
Okay, okay, all right.
I don't know
Um,
if they're still in it or not, but
oh, but I know the last time it was at one time. I can ever if I can, and I think my memory is right. It was taught by Alan Webster and David Decker, both of them. Um, and I don't know if Neil is Pollard is doing it. No, yeah, he might be doing it. No, I'm unsure. But yeah, but
well,
it's
the little handout or the little, what you told us to put on there was helpful.
mhm.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, yeah, great. Because you see, um, for me, yes, you know about topical sermons, expository sermons, that kind of thing. Um, but for, for me, listening to a sermon or to anybody preaching, um, I look for, well, fine, it's going to be scriptural, so that's a given. But for me personally, it is the person or organized in terms of his thought pattern. I want to see a flow. That's me personally. If I sit in a pew, for anybody, um, is this, can I follow this person's thought? That's one. And secondly, for me, um, is the person challenging me in terms of the truth that the person is bringing out. Um, I hate to listen and I get annoyed listening to people who just ramble, 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 and don't end up challenging me or say anything that I mean, even if a person is going to speak on John 3:16 that everybody knows, or Acts 2:13 that everybody knows, and I've studied over and over. I still want to know, okay, how organized is this person in terms of bringing me to a point at the end of it. You know, Daniel Steersman, when he preaches, he has a statement that usually says, this is the take-home message, right? He talks about that take-home message. Um, and what am I going to be taking away from this lesson that you're teaching me? And I do it not just for sermons, but I do it um, even in academic life. For me, what's the point? What do you want me to get at the end of it? How is this going to benefit me? All right, and that's what I look at. I hate people who just they're all over the place. I I can't. I don't learn like that. Um, I am a bit more logical in terms of, okay, I can see where you're going there. Okay, that makes sense. That connects, and I do that when so. But the course is a very good course, and it is something that you benefit from, definitely. I'm wondering
Just to
where the
have this
others are.
template,
So yeah.
I'm kind of using this and looking at what this first one as a template,
Yeah.
for future writing. Look forward to you looking at it,
Yeah.
but
I,
man, just for me, it's nice because I can pick it up and just go with it. It's
mhm.
got notes on it. It's got the outline on it,
Yeah.
intro, outro.
I'm going as soon as the class is over. I will look at it. Where are the others? Um, I usually give about 5 minutes, you know. But I
Morning.
think okay. Um, that sounds like him. Okay. Morning, sir.
Yes, how are you doing?
Sit again.
How are you doing?
I'm fine. I'm doing well. You know, I can feel improvement, and I'm doing well. Um, that's great. I'm progressing. I'm
Thank
progressing.
God. My network wasn't all that good.
Your
I'm struggling with my network.
okay. The sermon, right?
No, I'm saying I'm struggling with my network. Network is not all that stable.
Okay. Yeah. Well, let's make the best of it. I'm hoping that it will be faithful to you until 12 o'clock.
And the
Do you have a
sermon
class at
too,
after?
I've
Go
done
on.
80% of it.
Okay. All right. Um,
So
if you can
roughly
do
by
it,
the course of today, I will submit it.
okay, great. And as soon as I'm going to look at it, right, as I told Chip, I'm going to look at it right after the class. So, I mean, if you send it to me today, that would be fine. All right. Okay. I want to start. I want to do two things today. The class is going to be maybe in two parts. One, I want to complete Proverbs 31, which we did not look at on Monday. We didn't get to finish. So I want to look at that um, in this class. But I'm going to go on to lecture 12, which has to do with the introduction to the book of Ecclesiastes. So we will do both of that hopefully today. And the intention is to go through to chapter 4 of Ecclesiastes. And we will see, I'll try to go as far into that and most likely to complete Ecclesiastes 4 today. Just want to say something, some things about the format of the midterm exam. Um, there are going to be 40 multiple choice questions divided into two sections. There is part A that has 7 true and false questions, right? So a statement is given. Is it either true or is it false? Then the last 3 questions in that section is going to be fill in the blank. So you'll get a statement blank, and you have to put the word in, the right word in. And that section has to do with the structure of Proverbs. So it is going to ask you about the different parallelisms in the book. So it will give you a statement, and you're going to say what parallel structure that is and write the word in. I'm going to suggest to you quite strongly that you go over Brother Steersman's notes, because in terms of the parallelisms and the true and false questions, I have pulled the questions from that would suggest you have read the notes. All right. So you would need to know what synonymous parallels are, what contrast is, what antithetical parallelism is, all of that. You need to be aware of that, because you are going to be asked to answer those questions. The second point of the exam, the midterm, is going to be the multiple choice questions. And as I said, you're going to be given some verses that you would have to look at. For instance, I might say Proverbs chapter 3, verse 3 to 5. All right. And you would read the passage, and then there are questions based on that passage. All right. So it's going to be, I'll give you a week to complete the quiz. In fact, the idea is, I'm just rechecking certain things. I'm hoping that by, as soon as the test is posted, you'll have 1 week after that. And how it works is this: it's going to be timed, meaning what? If the test is going to be open from this date to this date, all right? And once that date is passed, the test is closed. You can't do it after that date. So I'll give you a week to answer the questions. And then, of course, as soon as you answer the questions, as soon as you complete the questions, it will give you your grade. All right? So that's basically what the midterm exam is going to be like. And again, it's going to be important that you read Brother Steersman's notes. All right? Okay. Any questions on that? That's clear. Okay. All right. Now, let's go to Proverbs chapter 31. And that's where we're going to pick up now. Proverbs chapter 31. All right. Now, this is, if you look at the superscription of this title, looking at the title, it begins with the word of King Lemuel. All right. So we're going to divide and outline the chapter into, first of all, chapters. In verse 1, you have the superscription and the speaker. All right, that's verse 1. Then from verses 2 to 8, Lemuel is going to talk about the maternal counsel to a king. All right, that is chapter 31 that we're in, verses 2 to 9. Once we get to verse 10, we're going to have, and I'll explain what this is, we're going to be looking at the noble, valiant woman. All right, the famous Proverbs 31 woman. And we will then discuss all of that. So in terms of the outline, we have the superscription, we have the maternal counsel to the king up to 2 verse 9, and then when we get to verses 10 to 31, we're going to deal with the woman of virtue, and that's the way the chapter is divided. So now let's look at, first of all, verse 1. The words of King Lemuel, an oracle that his mother taught him. So here's what we have. We know we know who the author is of this proverb, of this chapter, that it is coming from Lemuel is the writer. Remember, we said that there is Solomon who wrote it. There is the wise men of Hezekiah. There is Argor, and now this is by Lemuel, and it is the words of Lemuel. But now here is something that we also pick up. It says that it is an oracle. Now, the oracle is the prophetic teaching. The oracle is the word of God, right? It is the guidance from God. It is God's official document. But notice that it is taught to him by his mother. I remember, Emmanuel, you were concerned that the woman was always being left out. All right. Now, it is not taught by the father now. It is being taught now by the mother. So there's a maternal aspect to it. And then here's what we have, beginning from verses 2 to verse 9. What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? Do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings. It is not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, or for rulers to take strong drink, lest they drink and forget what has been decreed, and pervert the rights of all the afflicted. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and needy. All right. Now, here is how the verse is introduced, or this section is introduced. It is introduced with a triplet. All right. And it says, what are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vow? So there is this triplet question type that is being asked, and it is being asked of him to think about what has been taught to him through this oracle. What is it that you have learned? What is it that you're doing? How are you behaving? How are you living up to the counsel that I have given you? All right. How are you being, in other words, how's your lifestyle? All right. So what is it that is being emphasized here now? The writer Lemuel is emphasizing three things. One, he's being asked to remember his covenant, the covenant relationship that he has, right? One. Two, he's being asked to remember the vow that he made. And second and thirdly, he's being asked to keep in mind the counsel that has been taught to him. So remember that you are in a covenant relationship. Remember the vows that you have made in that relationship. And consider the counsel that I am giving you, because it is meant to guide you. That's verse number 2. All right. Now, what does that counsel involve? What does that imply for your lifestyle? In verse 3, Lemuel says, "Do not give your strength to women, your ways to those who destroy kings." All right. Now, what Lemuel is suggesting is Lemuel is not saying don't support your family or the female. He's not suggesting that. But what Lemuel is suggesting is that be careful of your relationship with women. In this sense, not that your relationship with women necessarily in and of itself is wrong, but what he is suggesting is that your drive, your desire for sexual immorality has to be checked. What Lemuel is suggesting here in verse 3 is that if you go down the road of promiscuity, if you go down the road of not restraining yourself in your sexual relationship with women so as to be unfaithful to your vows, you are going to destroy yourself. Okay, so Lemuel says, your ways to those who destroy kings. Okay, so he's saying, be careful of your desire for sexual gratification, for sexual pleasure, to the extent that you become unfaithful to your vows. That is going to be your ruin. All right. And it is a theme that's consistent throughout the Proverbs. Solomon talks about it, about the woman of folly. All right. And how we have to be careful about that. So Lemuel warns the king about his behavior, his practice, his lifestyle. All right. Now, notice what he's going to be saying now, and this is giving a series of warnings. Where does it stem from? What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? And then Lemuel begins to say, don't do this, don't be this, don't be this, right? Giving his counsel and showing the seriousness of the oracles that his mother taught him. All right. Now, look now at verses 4 to 7. All right. You want to read verses 4 to 7 for me, Emmanuel, going verses 4 to 7.
It is not for kings, O Lemuel. It is not for kings to drink wine, nor prince intoxicating drink, lest they drink and forget the law, and pervert the justice of all the afflicted. Give strong wine to him who is perishing, and wine to those who are bitter of heart. Let him drink and forget his poverty, and remember his misery no more.
All right. Okay. What is the warning that is being given here?
Alcohol leads to poverty.
All right. Okay. There is danger in alcohol. There is destruction in alcohol. All right. So he is being Lemuel is making the point, King Lemuel is making the point that look here, in alcoholism, in these intoxicant drinks, all right, there is a danger, there is destruction. It will bring you to your ruin. All right, here's what kind of ruin it will bring. He says, it is not for you, king, to drink wine. It is not for you to drink, rulers to drink strong drink. Why? Here are the reasons that he is giving, or here is the effect that he's saying alcohol will have on you. First of all, in verse 5, lest you drink and forget what has been decreed and pervert the rights of the afflicted. All right? So, strong drink, alcohol, Lemuel says, is going to make you one forget the law. All right? Secondly, it will make you pervert. It will make you become an unjust ruler. It will make you pressure the poor and the afflicted because you have lost your sense of reasoning. It is going to affect the judgments that you make. So, verse 5, he says, well, verse 4, it is not for you, the king, to offer strong wine. Why? Because it is going to make you lose your sobriety. It is going to make you lose your rationality. In what way? You're going to forget the law that has been decreed, and you are going to pressure the poor and afflicted. It will give you, you're going to lose your mind. Yes, Chip, you're going to say something?
I just find it interesting that this idea of drinking not only hurting the person who's drinking, but the people around that person.
Yeah,
So it has a deeper impact than sometimes we understand or realize until later.
yeah, exactly. So it is not just as you said, the individual, but it spreads to others, even into the society. All right. Um, Notice him now and I want us to look at this because this is sort of interesting. Give strong drink to the one who is perishing, and wine to those in bitter distress. Let them drink and forget their poverty, and remember their misery no more. What is he saying? Okay, why would you give?
Brother?
Yes. Welcome, David. Yes.
what I see is that there is no point in life to give yourselves to the drink unless you don't have anything to lose.
All right.
So the people dying doesn't have anything to lose. So it's a moment where it doesn't matter what they are doing, basically.
All right.
Think of it as spiritually dead.
Yes. I'm not okay. In other words, what he's being sarcastic. He is saying, okay, the person who is perishing, the person who is in bitter distress because he is drunk, because he's intoxicated, if you give him that, you are going to continue. He's going to die anyway. He's going to come to destruction anyway. So what Lemuel is saying, you see the danger of it? In other words, what, as David says, they're going to die anyway. And the point is, he does not know that he's dying. You see, he is thinking that he will get relief from his situation, but the only thing is that he's making matters worse. You see what I mean? He is endangering himself without knowing why, because his rationality, his logic, his thinking is nonsensical. All right? And what he is saying.
WhatsApp audio.
And what he's, sorry about that. Let me just turn this off. I should have turned this off. What he is saying here is that you are causing self-affliction and you don't even realize it. You're endangering yourself and you don't realize it. All right. And so what he's saying here is that this clarity of thought, this logical, rational thought is absent. It's not there. And he is forgetting what the destruction he's causing him. He's not conscious of the destruction that he's causing himself. Let them drink and forget their poverty and remember their misery no more. But that's just temporary because it doesn't remove the misery. It does not remove the poverty. It's still there. This is all self-deception. He's deceiving himself and doesn't realize it. All right. Now watch him now. In verse 8 and 9. All right. Open your mouth for the mute, for the rights of all who are destitute. Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. All right. Here is what he's suggesting about this advice that he's giving. The king, remember, in this section, it is the maternal advice to the king. And the advice that the mother is giving to the king is this. As a king, you need to advocate for equality. You need to advocate for the defense of the poor, and you need to advocate for the rights of the needy. In other words, make sure that you open your mouth and speak about, speak up for the rights of who? Those who are poor, destitute, those who are needy. In other words, the social justice of the poor and the needy, you as king need to speak up for them. So what we have in the first part of chapter 31 is, as we said in verse 1, there is this superscription. It gives the author, it gives the genre, the style. Genre is Genre, and it has to do with the style of writing. So this is an oracle that his mother taught him. All right? And then it gives the advice to the king, starting with these three questions. What are you doing, my son? What are you doing, son of my womb? What are you doing, son of my vows? All right? Okay. And then he gives, the mother is giving advice to the king. Now, from verse 10 through to 31 is what we know, the famous woman of Proverbs 31, the virtuous woman. All right. Now, here is what you need to remember. Verse 10 through to 31 is considered to be an acrostic poem. An acrostic poem. Let me spell the word. Acrostic. It's an acrostic poem. Now, what does that mean? It means this is what an acrostic poem is. Each stanza in that poem, it doesn't necessarily have to be a religious poem. Each stanza in that poem follows the alphabet. So A, B, C, D, if we're using the English alphabet. All right? The same thing occurs in Psalm 119. It's an acrostic poem where the letters of the Hebrew, all of the letters of the Hebrew alphabet, each letter, each line begins with a letter, all right, of the Hebrew alphabet, of the Greek alphabet, whatever it is. Now, why, and here is the important thing, why is an acrostic poem being used here? The acrostic poem is used for this woman to suggest that she is the total embodiment of wisdom. It is showing from A to Z that she is the total, complete picture of what wisdom is. And that's what the acrostic poem is being used for here. It is showing the totality of her wisdom, wisdom in all its fullness, wisdom in all its completeness. All right? That's the acrostic poem in this Proverbs 31:10 to 31. All right? So in other words, what through this acrostic poem is being done here is to idealize, to make us see, to give us a portrait, a picture, a description of the ideal woman. All right. Now let's go through this section. An excellent wife who can find? She is far more than jewels. The heart of her husband trusts in her, and he will have no lack of gain. She does him good and not harm all the days of her life. All right? Now, I want us to go through and we're going to describe this woman of virtue, this woman who is the total embodiment of wisdom. All right? Now, here is the question. An excellent wife, who can find? All right? What is the point of that question? An excellent wife, who can find?
Not easy to find a woman who has these attributes.
All right? Okay. In other words,
I see it
if
like a
you,
challenge.
okay, say it again.
I see it like a challenge. Like how I see the whole chapters is the mother of Lemuel is the one who taught him all this chapter. So I see like she is challenging him. If you want to to find something like that, pay attention.
Yes, all right. In other words, it is like, I don't know if you know the term, like finding a needle in a haystack. It is, this woman is out of the ordinary. She is one of a kind. And if you find this type of woman, you would have found everything. So here is what is being said. One, she is far more precious than jewels. All right. Oh, all right. Here is it now. The heart of her husband trust her. One, she does trust her, and he will have no lack of gain. In other words, she is trustworthy. All right. She is a woman who is trustworthy. She does, she looks up after his well-being. It says she does him good. She is a very benevolent woman. In other words, she is always looking out for the good of her husband. And throughout all the days of her life, throughout her life, she is a beautiful woman in that she's trustworthy, she's faithful, she's dependable. All right. So, in terms of that aspect, this is the picture of an ideal woman. But ultimately, what Lemuel is suggesting is that she is, her inner qualities shine, and they are better, according to Lemuel, than material wealth. All right? Better than jewel. Now, look at verses 13 to 15 and tell me what aspect of this woman's life is being discussed. From verse 13 to 15.
How she is working to provide for her family.
Okay, she's working to provide for her family. All right. Yeah, anybody else? All right.
She's industrious.
Okay. Yes, Emmanuel.
She's industrious.
All right, she's industrious. Okay. David seemed to be out. All right, now here is it. Yes, she is one. Yes, she is industrious. Two, she knows how to manage her household. And three, she's not only industrious, manages her household well, but she makes provision for her household. She seeks wool and flax. She works with willing hands. And here now is a simile. She is like the ships of the merchant and brings her food from afar. So she provides for her family. Good. She rises while it is yet night. Watch this. And provides food for her husband and portions for her maidens. I personally in my family, I was telling one of my siblings that I have never heard my mother say to me, "I love you." Never. But I have never doubted for 1 second her love and care for me. Never. What's my point? When I am sick, she was there. All of my needs, I have never gone and saying I'm hungry or I'm not feeling well, and she's never there. So even though she hasn't said it verbally, because during that time and they didn't know how to, in her generation, that was a don't know. But in terms of what she did, I have no doubt that she did love her children. Here's my point. You and I know that our mothers, how caring they are, how our mothers will go out of the way to make sure that we are doing well. This is this kind of a woman in the sense that she willingly works with her hands. She brings food from afar. And here's the point. She provides food for her household. And notice how dedicated she is. I don't want you to miss this. She rises while it is yet night. All right? Most of us can think back when we were younger. We're sleeping in our bed, and early morning, our parent, our mother, is getting up and preparing a meal for us. All of us can think about that. We are sleeping, but she rises while it is yet night and provides for her household. So she is industrious. She manages her house well, and she provides for her household. All right? Now, look at her now. She considers a field and buys it. With the fruit of her hands, she plants a vineyard. She dresses herself with strength and makes her arms strong. She perceives that her merchandise is profitable. Her lamp does not go out at night. She puts her hand to the distaff, to the woman, distaff is woman, and her hands hold the spindle. The spindle is the sewing machine, make wool kind of a thing. Now, what is this suggesting about this woman? What is she suggesting about this woman? She's what?
This woman is a hard worker. She's industrious. And not only is she industrious, it seems like she can make a deal here. This deal at 16 is quite a thing. Not only she considered a field and buys it, but she bought it, and from her earnings, she planted a vineyard. Hey, I can pick up what she's laying down,
Okay. So what is describe her then? I mean, in terms of what is this telling us about this woman? And you're right, Chip. You know, she
huh? It
knows how
tells
to
us she uses what she has.
all right,
It tells us she utilizes the things at her disposal, and makes the best out of what she has.
all right, okay. Emmanuel or David, what is this suggesting about her?
I
Okay.
see.
Yeah,
I
yes,
see
David.
that. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I see that she's. I was looking the words that I use: consider, girded, girded, perceive it. So she is very smart. She's that is one of the things. Is very smart. She loves to work for her family. Is I don't know that is why who can find it.
All right, okay. Um, that's why she is such a treasure to have. All right, Emmanuel, if your internet is up, what do you think? What
I
aspect
was
of her
thinking
life is
about
building? Mm-hmm.
she learned from the ants.
Ah, okay. What is she learning from the ants?
You know the seasons of this world.
Or yeah, you see here, she's not late. Yeah, go on. Sorry, Emmanuel. Go ahead.
As to increase prices of the products. So she will make sure that she will buy all her products. In case they increase the products, she will not find one thing. I mean, she will not waste enough money for buying things. In fact,
Okay. Here is what all of you are saying. I'm going to give you one word. This woman is businesslike. She knows not just how to provide food. She knows not only how to work with her hands, but she knows how to manage money. She considers what a good investment is. You see what I'm saying? She will see the potential. She goes and buy that field. And what does she do? She doesn't go and leave it to waste. She goes and she works it so that she can make investment on her money. She's making a profit. She's benefiting from it. So this woman is very businesslike. She knows how to manage money. In fact, you could call her an economist. Chip talks about she knows how to cut a deal. She's like the ants. She knows that, okay, you're going to have to prepare for the future. That's what she does. Right? So this woman is not only that, she's skilled with her hands. She knows how to make um, the flax in verse 13. But here now she knows how to run the spindle. She knows how to make wool. All right. And she's training, this staff is the word for woman, female. She is also indirect way, and it seems as if she's able to pass on her skills to these women. Okay. Now look at verse 31, verses 20 to 22. All right. All right. Somebody read verses 20 to 22 for me.
22 says, she makes tapestries for herself. For clothing is fine linen and purple. Her husband is known in his gates when she sits among the elders of the land.
All right. Okay. Here is this lady now. Verse 20 says, she opens her hands to the poor and reaches out her hands to the needy. Now, remember what Lemuel said to the king in verse 8? Open your mouth, judge righteously, defend the rights of the poor and the needy. Here is this woman now. It says she opens her hand to the poor. In other words, she is very compassionate. She is reaching out to the needy. Lemuel doesn't have to tell her to do that. He tells the king, who is all about drinking alcohol. In this case, this woman is free-spirited. She's free-handed, open-handed with the poor. She is not afraid of snow for her household, for all her household are clothed in scarlet. Now, here is this lady now. She is not afraid of the snow, like Chip, right? With his snow. And he's always about it snowing outside and it's not and that, whatever, complaining about that, right? Okay. She's not afraid of going out there in the snow. And here is what she does. She clothes her children and her husband with purple. She treats them as royalty. She makes coverings for herself, and not only for herself, but for her family. And she makes the best of it because purple is supposed to be a royal color. All right. So she makes clothing for herself, clothing that is fine linen and purple. How does she do that? Remember, she knows how to spin wool. She knows how to make flax and she knows how to spindle. All right. Her husband, when her husband goes out, okay, in the public, the husband is, okay, how do I put it now? Her husband is the envy of everybody else. She makes sure that when her husband leaves the house, he is well dressed, well kept, well looked after. So much so that he earns, verse 23, he earns the respect of the elders of the land. He can sit among them and feel that, look here, he looks good because she has taken good care of him. He's well taken care of. All right. Now, here, in other words, in verse 23, her husband earns a good reputation, a good name in the public because of what she has done and continues to do. And she does it willingly, by the way. All right. Look at verses 24 to 25. All right, somebody read that for me, please. Verses 24 and 25.
He makes linen garments and sell them, and supply sashes for the merchants. Strengthen and honor are her clothing. She sells rejoice in time to come. She
All
opens
right.
her mouth with wisdom.
Okay. And the teaching of kindness on her tongue. This woman makes the best garments you could ever find. But not only that, in her speech, she is also well respected. Why? Because she opens her mouth, and when she speaks, she opens her mouth, verse 26, with wisdom. And not only that, she is very and the teaching of kindness is on her tongue. She looks well to the ways of her household and does not eat the bread of idleness. She is not a okay. Here's it. If we go back to the Proverbs, this woman will never say there's a lion in the street. She would never say that. This woman is not a sluggard. This woman has learned from the ants how to prepare for the future. All right. Okay. Watch what is going to happen now. Let's look at verse 28 to the end of the chapter. All right. Her children rise up and call her blessed. Her husband also, and he praises her. Many women have done excellently, but you surpass them all. Charm is deceitful, and beauty is vain. But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. Give her of the fruit of her hands, and let her works praise her in the gates. All right. What is this suggesting about her? What is it suggesting about her? She earns the respect of her children, of her husband, and of her community. They call her blessed. They praise her. When you compare her with other women, she stands out above all of them. But now, look, it says charm is deceitful. She's not the woman of folly who deceives this man and lures him. Remember the woman of folly that we saw in chapter 8? She's not that woman. So she's not deceitful. She'll not use her beauty to lure people. But here, what accounts for who this woman is?
God.
Hmm?
God.
What? Okay. Yeah, but
Fear of the Lord.
that's what I want. You see, this woman is who she is because of the fear of the Lord. And what is the okay? What is okay? I see you smiling, Chip. Yeah, go ahead.
This is just great. You know, this is a fantastic. If we want to find a godly wife, and I've already found one, but I mean, for those who haven't, I mean, if this is not a great direction to use, wow. I got to get my wife on this, baby. Baby, you got a couple things you got to polish up on.
Yeah, yeah.
I might get
Oh,
smacked though.
here is okay. Let me answer this question. I think the King James says, whoever finds a wife finds a good thing. Not that she's a thing, but you can't get better than this woman. What accounts for it? The fear of the Lord. But let me ask you, all right? What is the fear of the Lord?
The beginning of wisdom.
Exactly. This woman is not only, she does not only have the beginning of wisdom, right? The fear of the Lord, but she is wisdom personified. Okay, remember, it's an acrostic poem. And what does that mean? It means that each line in the poem begins with a letter of the Hebrew alphabet. All right? And what is that suggesting? Why is that important? Number one, we see her embodiment of wisdom. She's complete wisdom. Wisdom is completed in her. But why do we use acrostic poems? What is the reason for that? It helps us in our memory. It helps us to memorize. All right. So she is the complete portrait of a good wife. In other words, here is what this is saying. You want a good wife? Here she is from A to Z, from A to Z. All right. So she is, in fact, what you expect of a woman who is completely personified in wisdom. Because, and what accounts for her behavior? But a woman who fears the Lord is to be praised. All right. And that is Proverbs. All right. Let's look at this now.
Brother,
Yes.
real quick,
Yes,
I
ma'am. Go
was
ahead.
thinking at the end of verse 30 when it says she shall be praised, and
Mm-hmm.
I was asking myself by who, and I was reading by God, by her husband, children, merchants, landlords, elders in the gates, the poor, the needy, everyone.
I like that. I like that because all of that comes out in from verse 10 to 31. Yeah, that's a good question. She's praised by whom? In other words, extend it and say she's praised by everyone with whom she has to deal. You see what I'm saying? Everybody that is associated with her, that comes in her presence, that has to deal with her, that she is praised. And in fact, here it is. Verse 29. Watch this. Many women have done excellently. So, in other words, there are women who can have some of these qualities. But you see, this woman, she surpasses them all. She stands out above them, even though we can say good things about other women. When it comes to her, she outshines all of them. Why? Because of the fear of the Lord. So whether you're king, whether you're the poor, whether you're your husband, whether you're the elders, you're whatever, she is praised. All right. Yeah, very good, very good point, David. All right, let me ask you this now. Looking at Proverbs chapter 1, the beginning of what the book of Proverbs that we have looked at, what is it that impresses you about the book, about Proverbs? What is it that stands out for you as you study and read these Proverbs?
Easy to apply.
Say that
There's
again?
there's so many applications to these proverbs in our lives right now. Uh, that's why I really like it. I kind of came to this spot where it seems I wouldn't want to make any sort of sermon unless it had at least one proverb in it, because it seems there's it's endless guidance, so many problems that we're going to face, and we have answers there too. So it's handy, it's kind of like a Swiss Army knife, it's got numerous different blades for numerous different problems.
Oh, okay, all right. David, what about you?
I was thinking about who wrote this, or the majority of this, and
Mm-hmm.
and how he was humble at the beginning, and then he got astray because of woman. The same thing that we just read in at the beginning of verse 31,
Mm-hmm.
and how all this wisdom, if it is not applicable, it is still is true. It is true because it comes from God, but it doesn't profit anything if we don't apply that. And I think Solomon knew this in the hard way.
Oh, yeah.
We will see in Ecclesiastes. He studied, or he gave himself to many things to understand them, but he he wasted most of his time. And I was thinking about that. It is true. It is there. It is available to us, but we need to watch ourselves and apply them.
All right. Okay, great. Emmanuel, what do you think? What is it that impresses you about the book of Proverbs? Okay, he might be having internet problems.
Looking from the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
chapter 1, and looking at the end of the chapter of 31, verse 30,
Mm-hmm.
I think the key verse or the key phrase, the fear of the Lord.
Mm-hmm.
See, it returns to the theme of chapter 1, verse 7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and instructions.
Mm-hmm.
And looking at it, if you have the fear of the Lord, that is the embodiment of wisdom. And nobody can live under the sun and have wisdom without being fearing God.
Yeah,
And
right.
Solomon took this words of his dad and applied it to his life. And this is the testimony that you and I are reading. So if you and I also apply the fear of the Lord in our life, there is no way our works are going to be in vain in the sight of God, and at the same time, the community in which we found ourselves.
Yeah, great. I think very good points that y'all are making. And one of the things that for me in Proverbs is how applicable God's word is. And what we see for me personally in the book of Proverbs is, yes, the key word is the fear of the Lord, and that's the emphasis. But the idea is how meaningful the word of God is to our lives. but only if we apply it. And where what Proverbs says is that it doesn't matter what sphere of life we are in, uh, that God's word does make a difference if we implement it, if we live it out in our lives. It benefits us, it benefits our families, it benefits our society. That is being able to apply the fear of the Lord, which is knowledge. All right, yeah. I particularly enjoyed the idea of of Proverbs in that regard. All right, I want to move on to the book of Ecclesiastes. It's now 10:15 by my watch. Let us take our break now until 10:30, the 15-minute break that we usually take now, and then we come back at 10:30. Is that okay? All right. So we come back at 10:30. All right. We're going to begin with the book of Ecclesiastes, and the idea is to go through to chapter 4, but that might not be possible. We're going to go as much into it as we can. I don't know if the others are here. All right. You're waiting patiently, right? All right, let me start. Now, the Ecclesiastes, if we look at how the book begins, it says the words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Israel. So here you have the, call it the superscription if you wish, the introduction. So it begins with establishing a couple of things. Just at verse 1. Number 1, it establishes the preacher or the teacher. And what we're going to find here is that the central concern in the book of Ecclesiastes is life, the meaning of life. What's the significance? What's the purpose of life? All right. So Solomon is suggesting here in the book of Ecclesiastes, what is the lasting significance? What's the lasting purpose? What's the point of life, basically? All right. And we can look at the book of Ecclesiastes in terms of 2 major sections. I'll give the outline, but there are 2 major sections here. First of all, the teacher or the preacher, he goes on a search, an investigation, if you will, into wisdom and its meaning. Solomon is trying to find out what is the meaning and purpose of life. All right. So he goes on a search for wisdom and for meaning, but what he finds in the first half of the book is that this is frustrating. So there is a sense of frustration in the first half of the book as to what is the purpose of all of this. Now, when we get to the second half of the book, we're going to see a noticeable shift. And what's the focus here? The focus here is looking at wisdom itself. And what he is doing here is moving away from the frustration of life and looking forward to trust in God. Life is frustrating. Life is disappointing. I was expecting it to be. I did all of this and it didn't work out for me. What I now have to realize and what I'm now realizing in the second half of the book is that it is trust in God. It is God's character that is, and it is God's way, it is God's word, God's commandment that is going to give meaning to life. All right. So to begin with, as we look at the introduction, one, we see in verse 1 the superscription. We're told that this is the word of the preacher. He's the son of David, and he's the king in Jerusalem. Two halves of the book. Solomon is on a search. Solomon is on a mission to determine what's the meaning of life, what's the value of life. And in his search in the first half of the book, he becomes frustrated because life is disappointing. Life is meaningless. There is no purpose to life. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. So in the second half of the book, he now comes to realize that the true value and meaning of life rest in God and his character, God and his word. All right. So there is, if we're going to do a broad picture of the book, what we're finding here is that there is the book is structured in this way, that there is a movement within the book from disillusionment, disappointment, frustration, to one of reorientation, one of transformation. Okay, so he's moving, what a hopeless life is, to the point where life now has meaning if it is lived by God's word. All right, so if we look at verse 2 of chapter 1, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. That's how he begins. Now, if you look at chapter 12 and verse 13, he says, the end of the matter has been heard. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. So that's where he, at the end of the book, he ends up with acknowledging. All right. Now, here is another, in terms of aspect of the book, as we look at the structure of the book, the overall overarching theme of the book. And then now we're going to go have here is in the first half of the book, Solomon is saying wisdom is inadequate. It is inadequate to explain the meaning of life. It is inadequate in explaining why wealth, or put it this way, wisdom cannot adequately explain the meaning of life, the existence of life, and it cannot really explain why wealth and pleasure and fame does not satisfy. Wisdom cannot do that. That's Solomon. What he does in the other aspect of the book is this. He acknowledges at the end of it that God and God's word is the real purpose of life. All right? So, how does the book begin? Vanity of vanities, says the preacher, all is vanity. But now, how does it end? Let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments. Why? Because God is going to bring every work into judgment. So the book concludes in chapter 12 with this emphasis. Number one, fearing God. Number two, obeying the commandments of God is what life is all about. That's Solomon. All right? All right. Everybody's okay with that? No. Let's look now. What would we say is the overall theme of the book? It is this. What is the value of life? Is life worth living? And so what Solomon does is this. Solomon is going to go through a whole litany, a whole health. He is going to look at labor. He's going to look at pleasure. He's going to look at wisdom. And he's going to conclude that they're meaningless within themselves. But what he is going to come to terms with is that these limitations, that is, wealth can't satisfy, labor can't satisfy, all of that, he's going to come now to the conclusion that these things should draw us toward reverence for God. All right? Now, so that basically is the book of Ecclesiastes. All right? Now, let's look at certain issues that are germane, issues that are important, issues that are vital to the book. Let's look first of all at the title of the book. Yes. All right.
My
Okay, let's
wife
look
and
at the title.
my son are sending greetings.
Okay. All right. Yes, man, I got it. I got it. All right. Let's now look at the title of the book. The Hebrew name for the book is Koheleth. Koheleth. And let me spell it. Qoheleth. Koheleth. That's the Hebrew name for the book. And it comes from the second word in chapter. It is the words. All right. It's Hebrew from chapter 1 and verse 1. And here's what the word means. It comes from the word kahal, which is Qahal. And what does that word mean? What's the suggestion? What's the idea behind that word? It means assembly or congregation. Now we're looking at the title of the book. The exact meaning of the word is unsure, but what it seems to imply is that there is a gathering, there is an assembling of, it's a congregation. So if we look at it as a congregation, then the writer of the book is a preacher because he's addressing a congregation. But there is the view that it is not so much preaching to a congregation, but rather it is the teaching to a royal audience. It is teaching an audience. So in that sense, some translations will not use preacher, rather they will use teacher. So it is the words of the teacher, a classroom setting. It is the words of the preacher, a congregational setting. All right? Now, here is the aspect of the title. Is the writer, Solomon, a convener, one who convenes, calls together an assembly, or is he a collector of wise sayings that's passing it on to an audience, not necessarily religious? In that sense, then he's a teacher. So,
Fisher.
yes.
So this preacher that we're discussing is Solomon, correct?
Yes, it's Solomon. But here's my point. Is Solomon, okay, what does your translation say?
It says the words of the preacher.
Go ahead.
The son of David.
That's what your translation says.
Yes.
All right. Does anybody that has a translation says the word of the teacher? Because you see, some translation says the words of the preacher. There are other translations who says the words of the teacher.
I was confused because my preacher is capitalized.
Yes. Mine too. But you see, here is what. Let me explain what I'm saying. It depends on how they are looking at the meaning of the word koheleth. Right? Does that word have the idea of speaking to a congregation, speaking to an assembly? In that sense, it is the words of the preacher. Good? Does the word koleth means a audience, a classroom situation where he's teaching an audience, where he's passing on wise sayings to an audience? If that's what the word means, then it is the words of the teacher. Whether he's teacher or preacher, it is the words of the son of David, king of Jerusalem, Solomon. So it just depends on how they see the meaning of the word Ecclesiastes.
Why is my preacher capitalized?
Right? Is it a congregational setting? Because it is the name, okay. Because it is now going to be not so much a name, but a role. It is what he's doing. All right? So it is more than just a name. it's a responsibility that he has. So that's why it would be capitalized. All right, because he's talking about a definite rule that he has. All right, now, make sense? All right, okay. Now, let's look at the idea of the word. The English title that we have, Ecclesiastes, it comes from or one of the synonyms or derivatives of the word is the word Ecclesiastes. And it is spelled, and you can write this down, and then I'm going to ask you a question. Ecclesiastes. Write that down. Ecclesiastes. What does that word remind you of? Or what does it look like?
Church.
If what? It looks like church.
Yes.
Okay. It looks like the word ecclesia. Okay. So, so it is the idea, it seems from that word koheleth, Qoheleth. The Septuagint, Hebrew to Greek, uses that word, EKK. Now, and so the idea is an assembly, a congregation, or church. All right. Now, here is the point. Whether it is the Hebrew or the English word, good? Whether it is Koheleth or Ecclesiastes, in the title of the book, what the book is suggesting is that there is a discourse, there is a delivery of a message, there is a delivery of some speech that is delivered either either by a wise preacher or a wise teacher. If it is to the wise preacher, then it is to the congregation of Israel, Ecclesiastes. If it is a wise teacher, then it is to an audience, including us. It is in a classroom situation. It's, and we would call it didactic, D-I-D-A, D-I-D-A-T-I-C, I think is the spelling of the word. All right. So that is why, to answer Chip's question, the word preacher is one of the reasons why the word is capitalized, because it's not just any preacher, it's a specific preacher, it's a specific teacher.
Well, they would be carrying a specific message, right? That's why we get that capital.
Qoea.
It's frozen.
Frozen in time. When he said that we were going to get to Ecclesiastes 4 today, I was kind of scared. And I don't know if my mind can take that much at this point this morning.
You're going to slow down.
God had other plans, huh?
So, as I was saying, it is not so much of as a proper name, right? But it is acting as a pseudonym. Pseudonym. It's a pseudonym for what the person is doing. Yes, Chip.
So it's more about the message that's being carried, really. Would that be fair to say?
Yes. In other words, let's go back to the title, the Son of David, King of Jerusalem, delivering a discourse, delivering a message. Is that message to a congregation of Israel? Then he's the preacher. Is it to a general audience? Then he's a teacher of wise sayings. All right? And that's the idea. All right? Now, here is the point. As we said, it is an occupational name rather than a proper name. All right? Now, let's look at something else here in terms of the name. So, whether it is teacher or preacher, is that really significant now? Because he's still delivering a wise message. All right. So if you look at it in terms of a church setting, congregation, he's preacher. If you're looking at it in terms of a classroom setting, he's teacher. All right. Now, so that's the importance of the title Ecclesiastes. Now, let us look at the authorship of the book. Now, if we take the chapter 1, verse 1, for what it says, it is the Son of David. It is the king he's the king in Jerusalem. But now, there are two schools of thoughts here. There is one that says Solomon is not the author of the book. There's another view that says he is the author of the book. And they have advanced varying arguments for and against who the author is. All right? Now, there are those in the academic circles, who say, that Solomon is not the author of the book. Well, what's their argument? The first argument that they make is the linguistic features of the book, the language of the book. All right? So when they, in their wisdom, flawed as it is, look at the language and the type of writing in the book, they say that it could not be Solomon. Why? Because some of the grammatical structures, some of the vocabulary items doesn't fit the era in which Solomon lived. Okay? And so they say it could not be him. Why? Not only that the language and the style is unlike Solomon, but they also say that it includes Aramaic, get this, Aramaic and Persian words. Now, in their mind, what does that suggest? It suggests that it could not have been written during the time of Solomon's reign because of the vocabulary, the grammar, and the words that are used. That does not fit that era. It fits the time after Solomon's writings. Okay? Now, what do they say then? Solomon, we know, is pre-exilic, before the exile. But what they're saying, if you look at the language in the book, it more fits in the post-exilic period. Somewhere between 350 and 250 BC. All right? Or
second those dates.
It is between 350 to 250 BC. And some even say the language suits more the Persian period from 450 to 350 BC. So Solomon could not have written the book because the language, the grammar, the vocabulary, the style fits a later date than the time Solomon reigned. It has Aramaic and Persian flavors to it. So it couldn't be Solomon. That's one argument. The second argument that they use to suggest that it could not be the Solomon couldn't be the author is the content of the book itself. What's their point here? They argue that Ecclesiastes seem to present a world, a society that is full of misery and oppression. Now, if in the content of the book, life is depressing, life is miserable, life is oppressive, then it couldn't be Solomon. Why? Because during Solomon's reign, there is prosperity, there is joy. It is part of the golden age of Israel. So how could it be that life for Solomon is miserable, oppressive, frustrating, disappointing, when he's ruling through the best of years? What are the best of years for the Israelite nation? So maybe it's not Solomon that wrote the book. All right. Now, these are arguments against the authorship of the book being Solomon. Here is something that they also say is argument that Solomon didn't write it. There is no record in the book of Solomon ever repenting. Solomon's repentance is not there. Right? So why call him a teacher? The writer here is called the teacher because it is functioning as a literary device. to conceal the authorship of the book. All right, now here is the point. The words of the preacher, the son of David, king in Israel, in Jerusalem. How do they see that rendering? They see that rendering as Solomon no longer being king. It is the words of somebody describing what happened in Solomon's day, what happened in that era of the Persians. So it could not be Solomon who wrote it because of the tense that is used. Solomon had already been king, according to them. Okay, so that's some of the argument why Solomon could not be, in these people's eyes, the author of Solomon, of Ecclesiastes. Now, what are the arguments for Solomon being the author? First of all, who are we going to believe? Are we going to believe these people who doubt, who question, who challenge the authorship? Or we are going to take what the text says? The text clearly says, the son of David, king in Israel. The only person who could be son of David and king in Jerusalem is Solomon. So the author is identifying himself as whoever wrote the book must be a son of David and must be king in Israel, a king in Jerusalem. The only person who that could fit is Solomon. All right. Now, if we look at chapter, it's chapter 12. No, not chapter 12. Chapter 1, verse 1 and verse 12. Look at what Solomon says. Verse 12. I, the preacher, have been king over Israel in Jerusalem. All right. So who are we going to accept? All right. Now, the other argument that suggests that Solomon must be the author is the book contains exceptional wisdom. When you look at the contents of the book, the circumstances that the narrator is dealing with and the circumstances which surround the writer, we have one, his exceptional wisdom. Two, we have the accumulation of his wealth. Three, we have the construction of projects. Four, we have a collection of wives and concubines. Who else has those situations than Solomon? All right. Now, here is the other argument. Those who say the book is very depressing and oppressive and all of that. So it could not be during the golden years of Solomon's reign. What seems to escape them is that Solomon does talk about eating and drinking and rejoicing. All right? Look at it. Just a minute. Chapter 11. Look at chapter 11 and verse 9 through verse 9, right? Rejoice, O young man, in your youth, and let your heart cheer you in the days of your youth. Walk in the ways of your heart and in the sight of your eyes. But know that for all these things, God will bring you into judgment. What is the point here? Go ahead and enjoy yourself. Go ahead and have a good time. Go ahead, rejoice and dance and do all of that. But God is going to bring you into judgment. It suggests that Solomon is, in fact, never mind the fact that it is depressive and thing, it is the case that Solomon must, the fact that it is depressing and whatever does not rule out the idea that he's the author, because we will get to it later on. When we look at chapter 2, verse 1 to 11, we don't see depression. Just a quick review. I said to my heart, come and I will test you with pleasure. All right. Verse 4, I made great works. I built houses and vines. All right. Verse 9, so I became great and surpassed all those. Verse 10, and whatsoever my eyes desired, I did not long keep from them. I kept my heart from no pleasure, for my heart found pleasure in all that my toils and whatever. So to suggest that because it is depressive and whatever, Solomon could not write it. There are also ideas here in the book of Solomon that there is rejoicing, that there is happiness and whatever. All right? So, and all of these buildings and things. Now, here is another reason why we say Solomon is the author. That's the internal evidence. But externally, the external evidence, the Jewish tradition has always attributed this book to Solomon. All right? Now, here is another aspect that is important for us to know. They talk about those who argue against the authorship of the book. And they say, you see, he is not, the language and the words that are used are either Aramaic or Persian. But that could not, to say that suggests it is the post-exilic period. The linguistic evidence, the literary evidence, the grammatical evidence suggests that it couldn't be during the post-exile period. Why? Because even in the when we look at the books like Esther, books like First and Second Chronicles, books like Malachi, which is, yes, post-exilic, but it doesn't reflect the ideas in that period. So what I'm saying, to suggest that because it is Arabic, Aramaic, and Persian means it isn't right. The arguments are not strong enough. So what is the consensus then, at least what we're going to use in this class, and what generally scholarships have accepted, Solomon is the author of the book. All right. Now, let's look at the date for the book. All right. In the same way that there's a disagreement among scholars with who the author is, by extension, there's also disagreement, controversy about the date of the book. All right? Excuse me, sorry. No. Here is what we need to consider. Those who reject the idea that Solomon is the author, they date the book to the post-exilic period. And they say it was perhaps written between 300 to 200 BC. All right? That is those persons who say it was written not by Solomon and it was written in the post-exilic period. Some even say that it was written during the Seleucid period. All right, Seleucid, during the Silent years. All right. Now, there is something else here, though. Those who say that the book was written by Solomon, they say that too much emphasis is being placed on the grammar and the linguistic language, literary evidence. All right? And they're saying that even in the pre-exilic period, there is evidence of Aramaic being used. So the idea here is that for those who argue that the book is written by Solomon, they are saying when we look at books like Ezra and Nehemiah, there are also ideas of Aramaic there. And so what the idea is that the book was written near the end of Solomon's reign. And so the date that has been suggested and the date that we're going to be using is that the book was written somewhere between 940 to 930 BC. All right? And why is that the case? Solomon is actually writing this thing near the end of his life. And therefore, it must be close to the end of his reign. All right? Now, let's look at some of the key words and themes in the book. The key word in the book, or the key words in the book, would be vanity. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And that appears some 37 times in the book. There's also another phrase that comes in the book, and that is under the sun. That appears 29 times. All right? What are some of the key verses in the book? It would be chapter 2 and verse 24. All right? Chapter 2 and verse 24. there is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. All right? There's also chapter 12 and verses 13 and 14. All right? And we know that being the end of the matter, the end of all matter is this first command. The whole duty of man is to fear his God and keep his commandments. And all right, so that is one of the key verses in the book.
Brother,
Now, yes.
I
Yeah, go
was
ahead.
hearing that those who reject Solomon's writing claim that those verses at the end were added long after, because they say the atheistic people says that this book was very depressed, so they throw that adding that at the end. And
Okay.
I was looking a debate with one of these brothers from Apologetic Press,
Mm-hmm.
and I hear that argument as well.
Yeah, you see, here's the point about that. It is a misunderstanding of what Solomon is doing in the book. As we said at the beginning of the class, Solomon is looking at the meaning of life. And he's saying that life is depressive, it is disappointing, it is frustrating. So he begins with the fruitlessness of life. But then he comes to the realization in the second aspect of the book that without God, life has no meaning. So in order for him to make his ultimate argument, what is his ultimate argument? His ultimate argument is the whole duty of man is to fear God and to keep his commandments. That's what life is all about. Solomon had come to realize that. And hence, the concept of the fear of the Lord comes across again in Proverbs that we just looked at. All right? So, but chapter 12 verses 13 to 14 is another of the key verses. Here is the key phrase in the book. The key phrase in the book is vanity of vanities, all is vanity. And we see that in chapter 1 and verse 2 and chapter 12 and verse 8. What's the key chapter in the book? The key chapter is in the book, David, that people want to dismiss, is actually chapter 12. All right? Where the preacher, the teacher, looks at life now from God's perspective. Life under the sun. That's what he is looking at. All right? Now, what's the central theme in the book of Ecclesiastes, in this book? As we said, the central theme is the futility of human wisdom and effort. That's Solomon's point. If you look at life purely from an earthly point of view, it is a futility of human wisdom and effort. All right? Now, how does Solomon develop this theme? He goes through his own pursuits, his own life, his own experience. wisdom, pleasure, material wealth, labor, and he comes to the conclusion that all of that is empty. And what does he then come to realize, as we said earlier on in the class, the reorientation? What happens here? He says that life is all about God and his word. All right? Now, I want to point out some things here in the book that what Solomon says that life is all about. Here is his point. Solomon is not suggesting that you can't get wealth, you can't get pleasure, you can't do all of that. What Solomon is arguing, though, is that these things have meaning and worth within a particular context. What is that context? Recognizing God's sovereignty. All right? Now, I want us to look at the outline of the book. All right? I want us to outline the book here now. It is, in the eyes of the scholars and commentators and all of that, that it is difficult to find an agreed structure of the book. That the structure is difficult to work out. But there are certain suggestions that have been made about how we might outline the book. All right? So, to begin with, the first part of the book begins with the superscription that is in chapter 1 and verse 1. The words of the preacher, the son of the king in Jerusalem. All right? Then that is followed by the thematic statement from verses 2 to 11. Okay? The book then moves from the thematic statement in chapter 2, in verses 2 to 11, to the quest for the meaning of life, a search for the meaning of life. And that goes from verse 12 through to chapter 6 and verse 9. And what is being done in this section? He is looking at the temporary nature of things. All right? He is looking at the quest for life's meaning, but in that section, that is in chapter 1 from verse 12 through to chapter 6 verse 9, he's looking at the temporary nature of life. What are the strategies that have been used to cope with the uncertainties of life? Then there is the conclusion, and that goes from chapter 6 verse 10 through to chapter 12 and verse 8. And what is he saying in this conclusion? It is that earthly goods disappoint, and he's showing God's answer. God's answer to injustice and God's answer to what life is about. And then the book ends with the epilogue. And that moves from verse 9 through to verse 14. All right? So that is one way of outlining the book. As I said, there is disagreement, not disagreement in terms of people don't agree, but there are different perspectives, is the word I should use. There are different perspectives as how this book could be outlined. Yes.
Sorry, can you repeat the things that you mentioned with the conclusion, please?
Okay, all right, no problem. Here is what in the conclusion he's dealing with. That earthly goods disappoint. That all things on this earth will end up in disappointment. But he's also showing in this section how God addresses these issues and how God addresses injustice. All right? Okay, good. But here's another way of looking at the book in terms of the outline of the book. They're saying you could also look at the book from in two parts. They call it a biparte, 2 parts, a 2-part structure. And they say the book begins with a prologue, prologue, and an epilogue. A prologue and an epilogue. All right, what do we have in these sections then? In the first section, are we moving now in the first section from chapter 1 through to chapter 6 and verse 12? And what is Solomon doing here? He is tracing wisdom's failure. Wisdom's failure in what way? It cannot deliver what it promises. It does not deliver self-sufficiency. It doesn't make us sufficient. It doesn't make us adequate. It doesn't give us true value. So he traces the idea that wisdom cannot give us that which makes our life complete and meaningful. And then he moves from that search, that tracing of wisdom in this section, that is chapter 1, verse 1 through chapter 6, verse 12. It moves to disillusionment. So it ends, so wisdom can't give us satisfaction in life. And what we see is that the end of it all is that if you try to, you're going to be disillusioned. That's the first half of the book. The second section of the book now moves from chapter 7 through to chapter 14 and verse 12. Right? And what that suggests is that wisdom becomes wisdom when it acts and recognizes the fear of the Lord. And when we recognize that we are obligated to God. All right? So, look now at what this is going to be doing for us. This two-part section, futility, fulfillment. All right? There are some words that are going to be repeated throughout these sections, like all is absurd and striving after wind. Life is striving after wind. All right? There are some things that you will not discover. There are things that you will not know. That's the first part of the book. The second part of the book is that God rules, fearing God, keeping commandments, all right, and all of that. Remembering God comes in that second half. All right? Now, I want to do something here. In chapter 1 and verse 2, it says, vanity of vanities, says the preacher. Vanity of vanities, all is vanity. All right? I want to show it now and us to look at how does Solomon indicate and list things that he calls vanity. All right? What Solomon, and this is another way of outlining, what Solomon is going to do here now in chapter 1, verse 4 to 11, that is chapter 1, verse 4 to verse 11. Solomon is going to give us illustrations of vanity. To chapter 4, verse 11, right? Chapter 1 through to chapter 4, verse 11. He's going to give us illustrations of vanity. So, watch now the proof of vanity. If you look from chapter 1, from verse 12 through to chapter 4 and verse 16, here's what we're going to have. He's going to talk about the vanity of striving after. The vanity of striving after. Secondly, he's going to talk about the vanity of experience. And he does that in chapter 1, verse 12 through to chapter 2 and verse 26. That is the vanity of experience. When we get to chapter 2, verse 1 to 3, there is the vanity of striving after pleasure. That's chapter 2, verse 1 to 3. In chapter 2, verse 4 to 17, he's going to talk about the vanity of great achievements. In chapter 2, from verse 18 to 23, he's going to talk about the vanity of hard labor. In chapter 3, all right, in chapter 3, right down to the verse 22, the end of the chapter, he is going to talk about the vanity from observation. In chapter 4, verses 1 to 6, he is going to talk about the inequalities of life. All right. What is it? You might wonder, what is it? What do we deal with in chapter 5, chapter 4 beyond this verse? Well, he's not talking about vanity in these verses. He's now going to be talking about something different. All right. Now, what this section, that is from chapter 1 to chapter 4, is emphasizing here, and all of these outlines that we see, what is going to be important here is there is one consistent theme, or I shouldn't say one, there are some consistent themes that Solomon is going to recognize before he comes to the realization that life is all about fearing and trusting God. What is it that comes here? First of all, what Solomon is saying is showing the weakness of human accomplishments. The weakness of human accomplishments. Secondly, he's dealing with the uncertainty of our fate. That is F-A-T-E. The uncertainty about our fate, F-A-T-E. We don't know what's going to happen to us. Right? We know what's going to happen to us, but when it happens, we don't know. He's also going to talk about, in this section, where he talks about vanity, the impossibility of obtaining true knowledge. We really can't obtain true knowledge. And finally, here, he's going to talk about the necessity of enjoying life. All right. What is it that we're seeing in all of these? There is a consistent meaning here. And the consistent meaning here is that life has its reward when we see things the way God sees them. Solomon is going to confess that I had this, I had this, I had this, I had this. But you know what was my problem? I didn't see them through the eyes of God. And as a result, my life was frustrating, disappointing, depressing until I turned to God. And that basically is what Solomon is arguing in these verses. All right. So that's basically the introduction that I want to share with you. I'm going to give you an early break. Why? Because right now we're going to go into a textual examination of chapters 1 to 4. But since it's 15 minutes to the end of the class, I don't really want to begin looking at the exegesis of the chapters. because come Monday, we're going to be looking at chapters 1 to 4. All right. So we will do that between chapters 1 to 4. I don't really want to start that now and then break it in 15 minutes.
Really?
Say it again?
So when you mention the, I put it like the considerations to came into himself. When you talk about the wickedness of human accomplishment, uncertainty of faith, and that, what is the range of the chapters in that area?
In that area? Okay. Now, what I was saying, when we look at the same chapters from chapter 1 through to chapter 4, where he's talking about
Is the illustration of vanities.
right, yeah. So he's saying that we don't know. We know that we're going to die, but in terms of what is going to be our ultimate destiny, we don't know. We're uncertain about that. And the only way that we can know is if we turn to God. That's what he's going to say after chapter 4. All right. Let me see if I can pick up something here in chapter 4. Okay. Look at verse 6, chapter 3. Look at verse 18, right down to verse 19. Watch what he's going to say. I said in my heart, with regard to the children of man, that God is testing them, that they may see that they themselves are but beasts. For what happens to the children of man and what happens to the beast is the same. As one dies, so dies the other. They all have the same breath, and man has no advantage over the beast, for all is vanity. All go to one place. All are from the dust, and to dust all return. Watch him now. Who knows whether the spirit of man goes upward and the spirit of the beast goes down to the earth? So I saw that there is nothing better than that a man should rejoice in his work, for that is his lot. Who can bring him to see what will be after him? Solomon is turning those things over in his mind. All right, so that is essentially what is happening here, and that's what I meant by the impossibility of.
This is,
sorry, yeah,
brother.
Yes.
I was recalling the verse that we read, that the fool spread out all that is in his mind. So Solomon was talking like a fool when he was.
You know what you could call Solomon? Here's what you could call Solomon: the foolish wise man. The foolish wise man. Yeah, because you see, what Solomon is doing is that he's looking at everything and he's saying, I tried this, it didn't work. I tried this, it didn't work. What's the problem? I need to turn to God. It shows that somewhere, and it proves that somewhere in Solomon's life, he wasn't seeing the thing the way that God was seeing. You see what I'm saying? Yeah. So he's a fool. He's a foolish wise man. Yeah. All right, great. Okay. Any closing comments? David or Chip or well, David is here. Chip or Emmanuel. Any closing comments? I don't know if but Emmanuel
Just thank you.
Okay, let's say thank you. Okay.
Just appreciative of that study of Proverbs. That was much needed because I've I've read a lot of them, didn't fully understand them. I still struggle with a few, obviously. There's a lot of them, but definitely have a better understanding of that book. So I'm appreciative of that.
Mhm. And what about Ecclesiastes?
I look forward to getting into it and seeing if it's all vanity.
No, our study won't be in vain. No, it won't be vanity. Emmanuel, are you on? Well, Emmanuel said thank you. All right. We will then pick up chapters 1 to 4 on Monday. All right. Um, what do you want to dismiss us?
I will. Thank you
Sorry,
so much,
sorry,
Lord.
sorry, Chip. Sorry,
Yep.
Emmanuel, are you going to say something? No. Okay, let's pray.
All right.
Mhm.
Thank you, Lord, so much for another blessed day. Thank you for letting us wake up today. Thank you so much for letting us all come together here. We know that you are with us here as we studied. We hope that our study has been pleasing to you. Please help us to continue to grow um, under the tutelage of these wonderful brothers that we have here at GST. Please be with all the teachers and our director and all of the students. Help us to emulate you so that we can bring more glory to your name, Lord. Help us to be patient, loving, and kind in every relationship that we have, even to strangers, Lord. Help us to shine that light of Jesus everywhere that we go. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. And I'll see
All right,
you on Monday.
Y'all have a great weekend.
Okay, then. Will do. Thanks. You too. All right.